peaks are what we have to worry about, because those peaks are going to be what we need to squish down. And so then we need to set our compressor threshold to activate above what our average talking point is. So here for us, it is looking to be around -15 to -16 still. Again, we could crank that gain up a little bit and adjust that. So now we're talking, and our averages are, we're still just kind of peaking up there. We're going to really crank it now. I'm switching back to my non-processed audio for you to hear this, just so I don't clip your ears out. All right, now we're at about -9. So everything above -9, we want to squish into itself to reduce the range. If we want to sound more podcasty, we keep our gain down a little bit, so that way we only have to activate it above, say, -17 here. So I'm going to keep my gain about +12.4. We're going to set our compressor to activate at about -17. We're going to turn that on. And what that's going to do is it's going to reduce the actual loudness that our peaks end up at, which is going to bring us back down this way, despite the gain that we have up here, which is what the output gain is for. But first, we got to set attack and release. Attack and release is basically how quick, once you reach over that threshold, how quickly, as soon as you cross that -17.5 here, for example, threshold, it will start to compress your voice. You generally want this to be pretty fast, because otherwise you could let a peak slip out, or you could end up being kind of like, whoa, as it tames you down. Or if you keep it slow, like you'll be able to get really loud and then it brings you down, which could be interesting. Certain use cases have it, but for vocals, you want that to be really fast. But then you want your release set to something like 200 milliseconds, because you want it to keep you compressed on that higher range for longer. So again, you don't just bounce back and forth like a sine wave. That would be really grating to listen to. So I recommend 2 to 5 milliseconds attack, 200-ish milliseconds release. And then for output gain, again, you're just trying to get yourself up in the red. I know a lot of people have been commenting, being like, you don't want to be in the red. Red is bad, blah, blah, blah. As long as you are below 0 dB, you are not clipping. And just because it's red doesn't mean it's set up the same way. If you max out at -6 dB, you are going to be quieter than every other stream and video on Twitch. And we're going to make sure that you never clip with another filter we're adding later in our chain. So for now, we are just going to crank that up. That's too much. See what I mean? If you're worried, if you're trying to listen to this in real time, or you're worried about clipping, we're going to go ahead and add another filter in the chain. This is called a limiter. I'm going to click add limiter, and I'm going to set the threshold to about -1.5 dB. A limiter is effectively a compressor with an infinite ratio. So every time you cross the -1.6 dB threshold, basically every time you start to get too close to peaking, it is going to crush your audio down with the compressor by reducing the range, not by affecting quality or anything like that, to make sure you never clip and peak. And so again, we want to be around -2 dB-ish for our noise, for just our overall sound profile. So if we set us to -2 to -5 dB here in the limiter settings, then we are never going to cross that. And then you can play with the output gain to make sure you're not too quiet, but basically that you're ever so slightly bumping up against that limiter only when you really peak. So like my average talking right now is in that -5 range. But if I start to yell, you can see we're hitting that wall basically of -2 something dB. And that is what the limiter is serving for us. So we're still missing our second stage of EQ, which is going to add a little bit of flavor to our voice. So we're going to add another 3-band EQ. We're going to say flavor, and we want that before the limiter. The limiter is going to be the last thing in our chain pretty much no matter what in any audio processing chain, because it's the thing that just holds it all together. And the order of operations is top to bottom, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. So limiter stays at the bottom. Now for our flavor EQ, I kind of need to take a sample here and see what I sound like for now. Okay, based on listening to our samples, we still have a little bit of nasally action going on, and we need to boost the highs a little bit to get a little bit of that clarity. So I'm going to cut the mids a little bit more. They just get kind of amplified through the nature of compression. And then we're going to boost the highs a little bit, which is going to take those higher frequencies that give us a little clarity and boost them to add a little spark to our voice. Again, ideally we'd have a parametric EQ that would look like this, and we'd be able to fine tune the specific frequencies and blah, blah, blah. We're working with just what's in OBS right now. So we're going to take the mids, drop them down a little bit more, take the highs, boost them a little bit, and I'm going to re-record my sample, see how I sound. Honestly, for just using a 3-band EQ, which I typically find very limiting, I'm pretty happy with how this sounds. I'm going to take my, actually I can just do an A/B test right now based on what I have in my 2 different OBS instances. This is what the microphone sounded like raw coming out of the microphone, and this is what it sounds like coming out of the audio processing. Not everyone's going to prefer it. You can tweak to your own heart's content and blah, blah, blah. But we made some good progress, and some of you commented on some of my more recent, budget microphone reviews, the difference that can be made. This is the process you would use to do it. Now, some of you are going to be asking, what about noise suppression? I have a